Hey guys! This week we're going to continue on from last week's video. We will talk some more about how humans have changed and evolved through time and what led to these changes. Last week's video was focused mainly on physical changes which occurred through time that allowed the early humans to start hunting and running. Today, we're going to talk a bit about behavioral adaptations and how other living beings have adapted to our own changes. Lastly, we will talk about how we modified our surrounding environments in order to benefit us. Through our evolution from primates, it is quite obvious that our faces have changed enormously. Some of these changes occurred as an adaptation to a different diet, such as changes in our teeth and our jaws, but other changes occurred as well, such as a reduction of our brow ridge, which is a protuberance in the forehead that primates often present, and the clear definition of our eyebrows. Why was this important in the evolutionary context, given that it has nothing to do with the environment, diet, or survival? These changes actually occurred to enable non-verbal communication to happen between individuals. When you watch something terrifying, you might pull this face. When you watch something cute and cuddly, you might pull this face. And when you watch something puzzling or unknown, you might do this one. The fact that you can do so many faces and show your emotions this way is an evolutionary adaptation to the fact that humans started living as a society, together and codependent. Our facial muscles also change with time to enable these facial movements to occur. And what about language? How did we start speaking? You might remember from a previous video that DNA analysis of Neanderthal fossils revealed that they possessed the genes involved in the development of language, so it is quite possible that they had started developing their own language and sounds to communicate with each other. Nowadays, we can study language and how humans start initiating speech by observing babies. When a baby is born, language is non-existent. They don't talk, they simply make sounds such as cooing, coughing, and most of the time crying. However, you might have noticed that they react to other people speaking. A lot of the time, they become fascinated when someone talks to them, although they do not understand what is being said. With time, they start imitating sounds that they hear, and they will recognize certain words and react to them. Basically, they are wired to know that language means something from an early stage, even though they do not know what it means. With time, they start imitating sounds and then words, and that is how babies learn to speak. Now let's move on to a different topic. Let's talk about parasites. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, some other life forms have also adapted through time to adjust to our own evolutionary changes. One example of this is parasites. Parasites are dependent beings. They depend on their host to survive. So it makes sense that as we evolve through time, they had to evolve as well to be able to keep using us as hosts. Some parasites use animals as hosts instead of humans. When they use domestic animals or farm animals as hosts, then that means their evolution is still closely related to our own, as these animals have evolved alongside humans. One clear adaptation of parasites is their resistance. Our bodies have also adapted to fight off infections and to avoid problems such as parasites. And of course, when medicine started evolving, we developed medications to help us get rid of diseases. Parasites have found ways around these adaptations and have become more resistant with time. One example of parasitic evolution is the Toxocara parasite. This parasite is transmitted mainly from dogs to humans, but can be transmitted from other mammals such as foxes, mice, pigs, etc. One adaptation of this parasite was the hatching stage for its eggs. The eggs of this parasite have evolved to hatch when temperatures start increasing, so around springtime. This is because around this time of year, it is more likely that mammals such as dogs and cats will come into contact with the eggs and therefore become infected. With time, the human population started growing more and more. Our habits and lifestyle changed massively throughout history. We started out as cavemen who built tools to hunt and who used fire to cook and get warm. And now we are a massively complex and evolved species with an economic system, deep interpersonal relationships. We've made huge advancements when it comes to medicine and technology, and our population has grown to an incredible 7.8 billion people. In order for all this to happen, the environment that surrounds us has evolved as well. This was especially true when humans started farming. The UK landscape that you know is not representative of the landscape that existed before humans. Before humans, the UK landscape was mostly woodlands and forest. There was an abundance of trees, plants, and wildlife. Nowadays, most of it is grassland and open landscapes. This is because we adjusted our environment according to our needs. And our main need was to produce food, so we started farming vegetables and animals. The latter is the main factor that drove this environmental change. Farming animals means that not only you need space for the animals to roam around, but you also need a lot of space to produce feed for those animals. So a lot of the trees and forests that existed in the UK were chopped down and replaced by open landscapes. One consequence of the decrease in the amount of trees is that the water cycle becomes disrupted when this happens. As you know, trees play a massively important role in the water cycle, being responsible for removing water from the soil and for releasing water vapor into the air. Trees also improve water quality by filtering out harmful substances and impurities from groundwater. Another issue we have created is the drainage of wetlands. Wetlands are places located near water bodies that accumulate water. They are incredibly biodiverse, with a lot of wildlife depending on these wetlands. They are important in the control of floods as they act like sponges and absorb excess water, preventing surrounding areas to become flooded. Furthermore, these lands also help to improve water quality, removing impurities and pollutants from it. However, in order to create more space for housing and farmland, a lot of these wetlands have been drained in the UK, which has negative impacts on both the environment and on the human populations. Nowadays, our governments create laws and protected areas to try and mitigate these issues. However, most scientists agree that more needs to be done to reverse this problem. We have also modified our animals, both domestic and farm animals. For example, the cows and the pigs that we see nowadays have also evolved through time to adjust to our feeding needs. They used to be wild and they looked quite different. So we started taming them and selectively breeding them to increase the traits that we desired, such as cows who produce a lot of milk. The same happened for our domestic animals, such as cats and dogs, but for different purposes. As you can imagine, pugs and French bulldogs did not exist in the wild before humans. In fact, they probably would have never been able to survive in the wild. Through time, we selectively bred these species to acquire new traits that would make them cuter, more obedient, more aggressive, and so on. This is why a lot of purebreds have so many congenital diseases, like heart or respiratory diseases. This selective breeding process is unnatural after all. And that is the end of today's video. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the evolution of humans and the evolution of everything around us, our environment and other animals. Next week we start a new unit and we will be talking about reproduction, contraception and more. Don't forget to check out our Patreon if you want access to exclusive content, such as exclusive videos, mind maps and quizzes.